With the changes in the environment and the changes with rules and things on campus, I hope they get to have as much fun and build as many memories as we did here, because we had a great time. No one got hurt. We didn't break a lot of rules, but we had a lot of fun, and it's a lot of great memories. I loved it here. I wouldn't have traded it. I came home one evening, I'm sure I had been at the library studying, and my entire bedroom was out on the front porch. I'm talking my bed, it was made, my little crate nightstand with my alarm clock, and the whole thing was out on the front porch. And so I just got in it, you know, just for fun, and then we had to haul it all back to the basement, but we had tons of fun.
Our chapter house in the 1960s served a lot of purposes for us, and it really worked well for us for quite a while our numbers were relatively low. The house slept 11. It was 2 bungalows that were joined in the middle by a structure that eventually became a pledge room and our executive council meeting room. And when you first walked into the house, there would be a room that I would call as I would call it a parlor room. And that's where our dates would stay to pick us up and wait for us right there. Then as you came on into the next segment of the house, it was a huge chapter room. And we could actually seat probably 50 to 60 people in there. And that's where we held our chapter meetings. On the other side of the house, after you walk past the pledge room, which was adjoining structure, on the other side of the house were 4 bedrooms. And those 4 bedrooms housed 11 people and had 1 restroom in it and 1 shower. And we had a house mother that lived there for the whole time that we had that house. In 1974, we rented a house over on Carlton Street, just a little block off Broadway. And at that time, we had a house mother who was Bea McGinney, and we rented that house for 2 years. At that point in time, we had grown so much in number that we were looking around to purchase a house again. And Bea informed me that she had a house for sale. And when we sat down and started talking about it, it ended up being a house that I was very familiar with, because the house that we're in right now was formerly the Phi Sigma Epsilon house on campus in the 1960s. This house that we are presently in was vacant for a time after the Phi Sigs moved out, and then Bea ended up renting it to a family who had 6 or 7 children, so it worked very nicely for them. And she offered to sell us this house for $20,000 in 1976, which was a real bargain even though it was 1976. So we went forward with that, and we did a lot of remodeling over the summer that year and had everything ready to go for the girls when they got back in the fall for recruitment in the fall of '76. And so Bea stayed on as our house mother, and she was thrilled to do that because she was actually living back in her original home that she had lived in with her husband and her family. We are just thrilled that we were able to make all that work for us in 1976, and here we are today, and we still have the same house, and it's undergone a lot of changes since that point in time.
Adding on to the chapter house would definitely enhance sisterhood for all of our members. It would make it really easy for members to come over to the chapter house a lot more often. I know having meetings and different things on campus, you don't always come to the chapter house or think, oh, let's go stop by. But if we had meetings here in a chapter room where members were able to hold events and different things, that would definitely enhance sisterhood and have more people at the chapter house, I think.
Also, during initiation at the Student Center, we're very concerned about secrecy of our initiation ritual, and having it at the chapter house, we wouldn't have to worry about outside guests walking in during initiation. We wouldn't be so concerned about the secrecy of the initiation ritual, but we would be more concerned about initiation ritual itself and the correct way of doing initiation instead of just worrying about outsiders hearing it or walking into it.
We received a new TV room last summer. The Parents Club came in and painted the room to make it look more presentable. We got new furniture. So now the room's a lot more readily used by members.
The dining room has new tables and chairs and hardwood floors and new paint in the walls, and that's really given the dining room a more livable feel. It really is a nice touch during recruitment because we can sit a lot more people, and it just brings the room a little bit closer together. During recruitment, we did have comments on the kitchen like, oh wow, you guys have marble counters, because not every chapter on campus has marble counters, and that's definitely created a positive impact during recruitment.
We've also had positive impacts from like other sorority members on campus. I know there's sorority members who've come over to study or different things like that, and they've seen the renovations we've done with the house, and they've really been impressed with how the house looks and how good it makes the house feel. We got new lights outside. That's definitely a safety enhancer. I feel much safer now when walking back in from my car, or if I'm sitting out on the porch, just because it's well lit, you can see what's going on around you.
I think along with safety definitely goes the new windows and the new doors that we've had put on. The windows now can open to let fresh air in, and if there was a fire, we can get out. The doors automatically lock when they close, so we're not afraid somebody's going to cart in during the middle of the night. And they are metal now, so they're not easy to kick in or anything.
I think the addition to this house would greatly enhance the sisterhood that we see in the collegiate chapter. As a former chapter advisor, I always thought it was so important to bring the collegians together in one place so they could spend more time together and really develop their bonds of sisterhood. And I think having the addition to the house would allow them to have so many more activities here, and would be a major factor in bringing those girls close together and developing and nurturing that bond of sisterhood.
So when our new board started in April of 2010, when Heather and I were elected to the House Association Board, the previous board under Penny and Rhonda had actually conducted a survey of alumni and parents and collegiate members to ask them whether they would prefer that we keep the house that we have or whether they favored building a new house. The survey overwhelmingly showed that people felt like the history and the consistency and more memories of the chapter house played into people's decision to say that, that they favored us building on here if that was possible. One of the underlying concerns that we heard from a lot of people was the history of the flooding, like I mentioned in 1993. So that was the first thing that we needed to do, was to address, could we safely build onto this house, or were we, just throwing good money after bad because of all the money that had been spent on the basement.
So I hired a structural engineer, and he came out and looked at our foundation and said it was completely solid. For as old as our house is, it was still in awesome shape, and that he foresees no reason to ever not build onto this house. He said we have a solid foundation, and that if he was us, he would totally stay here and build on. So that's kind of the direction that we moved. Then we went into the next phase of, where do we go from here? We did fix some issues down in the basement. It has not flooded in the last year. We cemented in some windows where we thought maybe some water was leaking through. We got a working sump pump, so that's constantly plugged in. And like I said, it's rained here multiple times this year and still no flooding, so that's definitely a good sign. And with the expansion, everything will be moved up from the bathroom or from the basement, ideally. All the laundry rooms, the study room, everything like that would be moved upstairs in the living quarters, and then in the chapter room is where they can use to study. So ideally, that would just be space to be used for a basement, for storage, and not ideally in a day-to-day use.
Marie Monk-Samp left us some cash and stock donations in her estate planning. And so that had actually allowed us to do the construction and renovation work that we've talked about thus far. So the money that we spent over 2010 and 2011 so far has been money that came from the generous donation from Marie. It was a great opportunity for us to get started and really do the necessary work that we needed to do to get our evaluation going. Now that we have that, kind of legwork done, the money that she donated will carry us through phase one. Phase one is really the expansion parking lot. We recently purchased land from Ken and Barbara Bateman behind our existing land, sorority house and parking lot that will allow us to add slightly over 100 parking spaces. The next two phases are our lower level and upper level expansions. We worked with an architect in the area to lay out the biggest possible expansion that we could do to give us the most room in our chapter room. So we could have all 70 women here for a meeting at one time and also allow room for alumni. The total square footage of the lower level expansion is around 1,950 square feet. Then additionally we would add an upper level, probably unfinished at first. The plan is that the expansion would be phase one, lower level chapter room. It includes kind of an entry foyer space, some lockers that the officers can keep their officer materials in that could be locked. It's going to have a real kind of library study feel. It's got a raised platform stage with some bookshelves, really state-of-the-art audiovisual equipment so that they can have a screen to project presentations. They can do all of their educational meetings, their alpha, gamma, and delta experience meetings. Additionally then, the phase 3 of the project would be building out the upper level. We have plans for 2 more multi-person bedrooms, the president's suite, which would actually be a 2-person room, but only the president would live there and she would have her own private bath, but there would be an extra bed in there for visitor space if we have a recruitment advisor who would come in, or somebody from international leadership consultant. That would be like a visitor space as well. So we would be putting a laundry room upstairs. And then we have kind of an undesignated space right now that the girls have actually asked if they could use as a workout room. And so we are hoping to be able to purchase some treadmills and elliptical machines and commercial grade exercise equipment so that the girls could have a facility to be able to work out here, as opposed to having to go to the YMCA in town or to a campus gym facility. In working with the architect, have designated the actual cost for every room, and so one of the things that we're hoping to do with fundraising is actually look for alumni who are willing to sponsor a room. So maybe you say, I'm a past president, or a group of past presidents would want to get together and sponsor the president's room, or a particular pledge class or decade would want to get together and sponsor the chapter room. We certainly have looked at doing things like naming rights for those rooms based on the cost, the square footage cost per room. We hope to be able to honor our major donors to the expansion project by giving them those naming rights to the room.
As an alumna member, I think that having the extra space in this house would really help in recruitment, particularly when we do dinners for the collegians and various activities that the alumna do. It would be real beneficial for us to be able to have the space to entertain and help these collegians in their efforts.